What's going on, guys? This is Jake from That Fit Friend, and today we're gonna be looking at the Cloud X cross training shoe. So a big shout out to Jamal before we go forward because he recommended to try these shoes, and honestly, they've been pretty freaking awesome. So huge shout out, man. So 3 pros that I like about this shoe is number 1, if you're looking for a cross trainer for primarily agility, shorter to mid-range runs, and just day-to-day wear, I think you're gonna be tough to beat this model. It overall is very comfortable, very lightweight, and very breathable. And if you want a shoe that you can wear all day and be on your feet with, I think this model is gonna be a hit. Plus you can run in this shoe and it doesn't beat the heck out of you because Win is a slightly more running focused brand. So it makes sense that they would bring a lot of their running focused attributes in their other running shoes into this model. The second thing that I like about the shoe is the Helion Superfoam in the Cloud Tech outsole. A lot of times when we see these outsoles, we're like, what the heck is that? And this outsole is like very flexible and responsive, so it does a really good job at providing you with a lot of feedback from the ground and not beating you up for shorter to mid-range runs. If you're doing sprints, if you're doing agility workouts, bounding, plyometrics, this is an awesome shoe for doing so, and honestly, the outsole feeds really well into those activities. The third pro that I like about the shoe is just the overall construction of the upper. So it has a mesh upper, it's very breathable and very lightweight. It does kind of fold down here if you tighten them all the way, but overall, I really do enjoy this upper construction. There's no additional stitching, so it feels very lightweight. And thus far, it's been decently durable. I am curious to see how it goes the distance because it is very lightweight, but upper construction is a hit for me, and it keeps the shoe very lightweight at about 8.4-ish ounces. So when it comes to an agility and run focused cross trainer, it's gonna be tough to beat this model. But now let's talk on a couple of cons with this shoe. So 3 potential cons I could see folks having with this model is number 1, it is not gonna be your best bet for stability, which makes sense. I know the shoe is marketed as a cross trainer and you can use it in the gym, but when it comes to loading, especially with a barbell or heavier dumbbells, the midsole and outsole here are not really gonna be that equipped to really allow you to perform at a high caliber with heavier loads. There's a lot of responsiveness in the shoe, which isn't a bad thing, but just keep that in mind when looking into this model. Don't expect to be able to lift maximal loads in this shoe. The second con I could see folks having with this model is the price. At a price about $140 with tax, it's like 150-ish. It's definitely not a budget-friendly option. Now, I do know that like with the more proprietary construction of it, I do think it's pretty awesome, again, for day-to-day wear and agility work. So if you are kind of niche and you're training with that, the price could be justified. But when it comes to just as an overall budget-friendly shoe, it's definitely on the higher end with its price. The third con that I have with this shoe, and it's something very aesthetic and not really that much of a big deal, but I'm just not a huge fan of how the material down here folds. It reminds me of like the Reebok Nano 9, how the material in that used to fold over too because it had that lighter upper construction. Again, it doesn't really impact performance, but from like an aesthetic point of view, if you do have to tighten these very tight and let's say you have like a more narrow forefoot, you're gonna have a little bit of overlap of material here. Not a big deal, and honestly, when I don't tighten these up that tight, it's not really an issue at all, but I wanted to make that known because it is an aesthetic thing that I did notice with the shoe. Now, let's talk on probably the most, I think, fun part of this video, the performance of this shoe. So when it comes to performance, we are gonna break this section into 3 parts. We're gonna talk about lifting, more of our agility and plyometric HIIT and class style workouts, and then day-to-day wear and running. Now, when it comes to lifting, I have mentioned this earlier in this video, but it's not gonna be your best bet for heavier loading. With this shoe, I've worked up to like 245-ish pounds with deadlifts and just focused on the overall compression of it. And you do get a little bit at that weight. So you can use this model with slightly heavier loading if you really want to, but my question would be why? Especially since we know that this shoe is designed for more versatile training and agility / running workouts. So with loading, if you're just gonna do lighter lifting or just like your class workouts where you're not going that heavy, this model will work. But I would say cap loading, honestly, around like 275 pounds. You could get away with using it, once again, for heavier loads, but I would ask why. It's like hitting a baseball with a golf club. You can do it, but it's not gonna be the most effective tool for getting the job done. So now when it comes to agility, plyometric, and more of like our bounding and class and HIIT workouts, like I actually really love this shoe. It's honestly probably my favorite cross trainer at this moment for those style of workouts. Like just with how lightweight it is and how responsive it is, I think this is a great shoe for tackling those styles of activities. You get a lot of feedback from the ground in this, and with how lightweight it is, like box jumps, sprints, literally anything where you're gonna be doing any form of sharp power focused movement feels awesome in this shoe. Plus, with the 6mm heel to toe drop, it feeds really well into those styles of activity. So if you are more of a midfoot and forefoot runner, you can wear this shoe and get by with it in more of your like class style workouts and HIIT training. And it feels pretty good for sprints too. With the Cloud Tech outsole, it really allows you to really ground the foot, and like you could see how flexible it is. So if I'm moving laterally, forward, or backwards, the shoe does a pretty good job at gripping the floor and allowing me to propel myself in whatever direction I'm heading in. Now, on a day-to-day basis and a lifting basis, on a day-to-day wear basis, this shoe is awesome. So if you are somebody who is on their feet all day, looking for a comfortable model to kind of just wear out and about, this is gonna be a good bet in my opinion. The only thing is price point kind of does suck, especially if you do just plan to wear them all day and they're going to get beat up from the climate and the outside around you. But from a day-to-day wear basis, this shoe is awesome, and overall comfort-wise, it does a really good job. Now, with shorter and mid-range runs, I'm gonna be fully honest, I have not run more than 3 miles at a time in this shoe. I am in prep for a powerlifting meet, so I haven't been able to really push the envelope with running in that context, and plus I'm more of a lifter, so I want to give you a lifting point of view with this review. But with shorter runs, I honestly really like this shoe a lot. It feels way better than most cross trainers that you can try to run in with shorter runs, and honestly, for my more mid-range runs, so in between like 4 to 6 miles, when after my meet I'm gonna start tackling, this is probably gonna be my go-to pick when it comes to cross-training shoes. So for shorter mid-range runs, I would highly recommend this, especially for shorter range runs, which I've done in the shoe, and for sprints, this feels pretty dang good. You get a lot of flex up here in the toe and you could really grip the floor. So overall, this shoe is gonna be a really good bet for anybody who wants a day-to-day model, shorter to mid-range run model, and more agility, HIIT training, and like class workout style shoe. It's not gonna be your best bet for heavy loading, but understanding the context of the construction of the shoe, it's pretty easy to see where the shoe is going to excel across the board. So now let's ask the question, are the Cloud X cross-training shoes worth it? I think if you're someone who wants a shoe for HIIT training, agility, and more versatile style workouts, and you're not necessarily so worried about heavy loading, then this model is worth it. Plus, it's very comfortable on a day-to-day basis. The only real drawback is the price. At around like $140 USD with tax, it's gonna be like $150. It's definitely not the most budget-friendly shoe, but I will say, if the price is a turnoff, try to only limit their wear for the styles of activities and workouts you plan to use them with, and their overall duration of use should be prolonged a little bit. So when looking at sizing of the Cloud X Cross Trainer, you should be fairly safe going true to size. The length fits very true, and the overall build of this shoe is athletic, so it has more of like a neutral style build to it. Overall, I don't feel overly cramped up here in the toe box, plus with the lighter mesh upper, you do get a little bit of a break-in period there, so they will stretch a tiny bit for your foot if you have a wider forefoot, but for most folks, true to size is gonna be the call. So we've discussed price already, but for the Cloud X shoe, you can expect to pay around $140 USD. Now with tax, that's gonna be around 150-ish. So when it comes to being a budget-friendly model, this is not really the best bet out there. However, if you do have those niche performance asks that I've discussed earlier in this video, I think this model is pretty dang good. Plus, just be careful with how you are using it, because you can make it last a little bit longer if you are taking good care of them and only really using them for the styles of activities you wish to use them for. All right guys, now looking at the construction of the Cloud X cross training shoe, we're gonna make our way from the toe to the heel. Making our way up here on the toe, we have an extended outsole layer that comes up. It's this like slimmer material here, and honestly, I would say that if you're doing a lot of toe dragging stuff, so like burpees or sprint get-ups, be very conscious of what's happening up here. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of thinner lips like this because they can tend to break down a little bit and peel, so just be very conscious of that. We do have a little bit of added support up here around the toe as well. Then the upper construction is a breathable mesh, so on the medial, lateral, and just over the toe box here, we have a bit more of like a breathable mesh, and that's honestly awesome, I think, for keeping the feet rather cool, especially if you're training outdoors for longer runs. Making our way to the midfoot and heel upper, we have a slightly more rigid mesh material, and then back here on the heel, we do have a little bit of an added boot, so you do feel a bit more secure in the heel of this model, which is awesome because you don't want to obviously have any lacking stability in the heel where it just folds over or you're having a lot of heel slip. So I'm happy that they added these added materials back here towards the heel. Making our way to the midsole, we have the Cloud Tech midsole, and then we have the Helion Superfoam within that. So you get a lot of responsiveness out of this. Like you can see, it doesn't take a lot of effort to get some responsiveness and compression here throughout the shoe. And that's also why I don't recommend loading this shoe very heavily, because again, you're not gonna be able to really root the feet with this style of midsole and outsole. It performs really awesomely, but for certain activities. Then looking at the outsole itself, we have that CloudTech outsole. So as you can see, it's very maneuverable, very flexible. You can almost like wrap the shoe into a little circle, which is honestly a good and bad thing depending on how you want to use this shoe. But personally, I love it for like more agility and versatile focused training. We have a rubber tread that pretty much goes over the whole outsole, so you're not gonna really have any issues with gripping in this model. Then making our way to the eyelets, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eyelets that go up and a 7th back here for lace locking, and a slightly thinner shoelace and thinner tongue. So with thinner tongues, I will say, be conscious with how you're pulling them on. Try to pull them on like this just to avoid any potential breakdown issues with this tongue. Personally, this is way better than the like Nike Metcon 4 tongue, but overall, I would say be conscious of that just because like I don't want you to invest money in this shoe and then have the tongue rip because you pulled them on too quickly. Also, something that you can't really see in the outer construction as a whole in this model is that ON is using their Speedboard tech in this. Speedboard is a liquid injected plate of thermoplastic polymer that sits in between the midsole and outsole and the upper construction in this shoe. So that is something you can expect in this model. And the insole is removable here. It's very lightweight and very breathable. And that also is something that helps keep this shoe super lightweight. Overall, guys, I think those are pretty much the major aspects of the construction of this shoe. The shoe is really cool because there's a lot of proprietary function in it and construction aspects. But if you have any questions or think I missed anything, hit me in the comments below. Or if you see anything on this construction overview that kind of like piques your interest, hit me in the comments below. All right, guys, that wraps up my review of the CloudX cross training shoes. Overall, I am subtly surprised at how this shoe performed. When Jamal recommended them, I was a little bit on the fence because I think in my mind before getting this pair of shoes were like a lot of hype. They have this weird outsole, like I didn't know anything about them, but I'm glad I actually got them because I've fallen in love with them with more versatile style training. And honestly, when it comes to my shorter and mid-range runs after my meet, this is probably gonna be my go-to choice for tackling those tasks. If you have any questions on this model, hit me in the comments below. And as always, guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.